friends, many counted you out. They said you would never win. They said you wasn't strong enough, cute enough, smart enough. But guess what? You got purpose on the inside of you. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Everyday Purpose Podcast. I am your host, Felix Bobo, and I know it's been a while, but I'm so glad that you guys are back with us here, and I have a special guest with us here today. I have Mr. Brayden Rosa. Come on, family, let's give it up for him one time. All right, and here we are. Let me tell you, this episode I have been truly looking forward to in regards to what I believe this young man is going to be able to impart to so many people. Listen, not just high school and middle school students, but I truly believe this young man has a word for, yes, you as well as listeners, as maybe adults that are listening to this today. And so, come on, let's give it up one more time for Mr. Brayden Rosa. Come on, family. Come on, there we go. Brayden, tell us who you are. Tell us why you even here on the Everyday Purpose Podcast.
Thank you for having me here, Bobo. Right, cool. So my name is Brayden Rosa. I'm a high school student right now. I'm a senior, so I'm getting ready to transition into that college life. So looking forward to that. But I've listened to this podcast for a while now, and I've been lucky enough to have a relationship with you previously, and you've been able to help me and mentor me along a lot of activities and opportunities and experiences, and actually really trying to root a life in actual purpose and making actual change in something that's important and impactful in others. So I'm grateful to be here on this podcast, and hopefully I can share my story a little bit and inspire others to do the same.
100%. Man, you was just talking about that right now. I remember being a senior in high school. It was about 50 years ago. No, I'm just messing around. But how has high school been? Because one of the things I do want to visit is, like, you were in high school during the whole COVID thing, correct? Like, how was that? Like leading up to that and then coming out of it, how was that situation?
Yeah, so COVID happened about halfway through my freshman year. So I remember like getting in, I was super involved as a freshman, and I was getting my foot in. I'm like, all right, sweet. I like this 2 varsity sports, ASB, leader of my Christian club. So it was very exciting, very fun. And then suddenly like the whole world just came to a stop and a pause. And like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I've been an athlete my entire life, and I couldn't even practice now. And like, true. Christian, like part of that, like churches closed down, like had to watch everything on videos. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do now. Like, I've been building up so much of a foundation to like go out there and be involved, and like preparing myself to actually go out there and have an impact. And now just everything went on pause. So definitely took a lot of struggling, a lot of workouts at home, and a lot of like practicing in my own like backyard pool. I'm a water polo player and a swimmer. So just trying to do whatever I could to still build myself and grow to try to eventually have like the best impact I could one day. So, but yeah, it was a struggle.
And that's one of the things, I do want to talk about, because it's different for me. In the sense I've lived my life, I'm a little bit older than you, but, and so I think that sometimes even as an educator myself, we have to be careful, because we'll be like, whatever is done, it's over with, like, let's get back to what challenges did you face, like coming out of a time where pretty much the world was shut down to where like, you were just now expected to kind of just get back into the swing of things. Like, did you run into any challenges in that?
Yeah. So, and especially like for me, it was at such a crucial time in my life. Like, went into COVID halfway through my freshman year, basically we're still technically like trying to come out of it like senior year and like end of my junior year last year. So a lot of maturity happened for me, and like especially realizing like back then, I already mentioned I want to be a water polo player. That was my dream. That was like what I thought my purpose was. Like, I've been an athlete my entire life. My family likes to joke around that I learned how to swim before I learned how to walk. So like literally
I'm pretty sure you did though.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I don't think it's a joke, but so my entire life has revolved around this, and I'm like, all right, sweet. I feel like that's my purpose. That's my calling. I want to go play water polo at that D1 level, and like I want to go dominate there and like have that as like my experience and my opportunity, and that's how I have my impact, and that's like my platform. But going through COVID and coming out the other side, like something changed, and I was like, I still really want to be like this athlete, but like I'm feeling called by God to like a different purpose. And just that struggle, I'm like, okay, God, like I've trusted you my entire life. Like, you've blessed me with so many amazing opportunities and all of that. And like, are you still calling me to be like a D1 athlete? And now just coming through this other side and realizing like, regardless of like how hard I've worked for that and how much effort and like the blood, sweat, and tears I put for my entire life in that, just realizing like, hey, I think my impact, my purpose, my calling is rooted in something else. So that was a big struggle for me.
I think that's where a lot of current and former athletes, they struggle. I look at one in particular, Tom Brady, right? It's that process of like when you've done something all your life.
Yeah.
You know, I even share in previous times where when I go speak to athletes, you know, with me, it was always football.
Yeah.
Like, and when I didn't have the season of football, I had the off season of football. So it was always this preparation. And I remember, similar to what you were just saying, I was overseas in Germany playing football. And I was seriously spending a lot of time in prayer because I couldn't watch any TV because everything was in German.
Yeah.
You know, I got tired of just like going out. I would ride my bike around the city, beautiful, beautiful country. But I had a lot of alone time, a lot of time of reflection, and really started asking myself this question of like, how much longer did I want to do this? I didn't necessarily not want to play football anymore. I just think that God was speaking to me in a different level, in a different way. And then I remember I was just like, well, what is it? And I remember I was riding my bike to the stadium, getting ready for a game. And I remember these kids were like following me, and they were like, Bobo, go Bobo, go Bobo. And I remember I had just spent time like that morning just saying like, God, what is it? Like, what do you want me to do? And then like it just clicked. And it was like these group of kids, and I began to reflect back in my life. And I said, I've always had this connection with students. I've always had this connection with kids. And you know, whether I gravitate to them or they gravitate to me, I always felt like it was something that I can do to empower them, to encourage them, because I realized a lot of us go through things in life and a lot of us allow challenges and difficulties stop us. But then as well as some individuals are not encouraged to go after their dreams and their goals. A lot of people are not dreaming. They don't have a vision for their life. And I know that's played a big portion of where you are today, as far as being the leader you are, being the athlete you are, getting ready for college, was having that vision for your life. But people need to understand that sometimes even our difficulties that we face in life are not the things that are meant to stop us, but they're meant to kind of like help us and push us into our destiny. When looking at that, like vision in your life, like, do you have a vision for your life? Is it written down? Like what does that process look like? I'm interested to know myself.
Yeah. So I do have a vision for my life. So I think I was 11 or so. I'm 18 right now. So 11 or 12, I went up to church camp for the first time for a week. And like through that process, it was a great week and built a lot of lifelong like friendships or like friendships I've had ever since then, and like really close people from them. And from those opportunities, I felt like called to be a pastor. So my definition of what a pastor is has changed, but realizing like to work in ministry and like the impact, because even though like I feel like so much of my life has revolved around sports, looking back to it, like you said, how you've always had that connection, like the end of the day, like when I look back at my life so far, and again, only 18 years of life, so it's not like the biggest pool in the world, but just looking back at it and realizing like the things that felt the most purposeful and most impactful, and realizing like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is how I can impact and like change lives. It has been through the church and through that. So I've been blessed enough with a lot of opportunities to go and pursue that pastoral development. And I actually want to go to CBU next year. They have one of the top applied theology programs in the entire nation.
Well, congratulations.
So, yeah,
sir.
thank you. I'm planning to, or I got accepted into there. So doing that to help grow me to further into this role. But I've already been blessed with so many experiences to see like how impactful that leadership position can be. Like, for example, this last year, I was blessed with the opportunity for an internship. And part of it was I got to go up for my church. And part of it, I got to go up and at the same church camp where like I gave my life and basically like dedicated, hey, here's what I want the purpose of my life to be. At 7th grade is a really cool like coming full circle moment, because I got asked to be a counselor for 7th grade guys. So I was going in and I was like, you know what, I'm going to expect this to be like exactly like it was my 7th grade year. God has a unique way of humbling people like that. So it was way more challenging than I could have ever imagined. I'm like, oh, these are always so much fun. And it was actually like really draining, but it's the most fulfilling year I've ever had at church camp, because I got to lead and mentor these young men and show them like, hey, here's what a healthy relationship in Christ looks like. So just the impact and the purpose, like the everyday purpose that came from that, just made me realize like, okay, yeah, I want to be an athlete, but like actually living a life rooted in change and growth and like positive impact is founded in stuff like this. So.
That's so good. Like, I think that for one, identifying maybe a route or a pathway that you wanted to take. And I think that a lot of times where we miss it, and one of the things I'm always on the lookout for is with even my own kids, is I'm looking at them and I'm saying, what areas are they good at? What things are they gravitating to? Because I believe my job and my responsibility as a parent is to also put them in a position to where they can grow in that gift. You know, I think that sometimes as adults, we can get so preoccupied with, you know, being in our own world, which is true. We got to go after our goals and our dreams. But if we have children, our job is look and say, all right, what is my son good at doing? Like, I noticed my son, he can sit and build Legos for like hours on end. Like, you won't distract him. And he can draw. And I understand a lot of kids go through that drawing phase, but like, he can sit there and draw. And I'm like, okay, is it architect? Like, what is it? And I want to provide him exposure to go and do that, because those things, I believe our purpose is always calling us.
Yeah.
I think that if you truly begin to reflect back on your life, your purpose was always like, Brayden, I'm here. But like at the same time, like, I always thought my goal, I wrote it down when I was in 5th grade. I've shared it before on the podcast, was that I wanted to go play NFL football. First, I wanted to go play USC, play for USC, get a full scholarship to play at USC, and I wanted to go play for the 49ers. I joke about it because I didn't do either one of those things, right? But at the same time, God has a way of humbling us, but I believe also he knows the plans that he has for our life.
Yeah.
And going back and looking back, honestly, yes, I wish I would have still played at USC to this day, but at the same time, I'm here today because of the experience that I went through. And the experience that you went through in life has brought you to the place where you're at today, of having that understanding of truly what God has called you to do, the challenges. I also even think about some of the things. I believe that some of the individuals that have the greatest call in their life sometimes have faced some of the greatest challenges and adversity in their life. Yeah. For instance, my mom tells me when she was having me, there was some complications with the birth. The umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck. Yeah. So every time that she went to push, like, my heart rate would slow down. And so they had to go and do an emergency C-section. And then they found out that the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck. And I always use that thing of saying, like, that I couldn't be here today, but I have a purpose in life. Everybody has a purpose in life, a calling in life. And it's not just about me, but it's about the ones that I'm called to reach and make an impact on their life. I don't know, like, personally, like, if that resonates with you, or if you have any story that can maybe connect. Like, what challenges have you faced, maybe from early childhood to maybe even currently, that you have experienced in life?
Yeah, that actually really resonates with me. So not to like, to piggyback off of that, with my own birth story. So when I was born, something was wrong with my bilirubin level. So something in the blood, and basically at a few days old, I had to have a full blood transfusion, and doing that to a newborn who like just weighs a couple pounds. It's doctors predicted that if I was even going to live, that wasn't a certainty. I was going to be blind, deaf, and special needs. So that was obviously very scary, like, for my whole family. And God bless, like, I made it through okay. But even like that instilled with me, kind of like how you were saying, how like, okay, I know I have a purpose. Like, same with me, like, part of that, I mentioned earlier, like, I realized what my purpose and calling was. Like, even though it's been present my entire life, like, I realized what it was at a church camp. What made me realize was that, like, hey, I'm here for a purpose. If not, I would be dead, or I would not have the same quality of life I would. But for some reason, God has blessed me with this opportunity to come in here and like actually make an impact and make a change and live a life that is rooted in something bigger than myself. So that's kind of what led me on that path of finding, okay, I want like the vision of my life to pursue that like pastoralship and like working in ministry. So I think like a big challenge with that too is like growing up. Again, I already mentioned how I wanted to be an athlete and like how big a part of my life was, and like how I thought that's what my vision was, and trying to like transfer my vision. I think a big part of that too is like, I don't think like being an athlete, like I'm completely forgetting everything. Like those like lessons and those valuable opportunities to learn and grow, like I'm still going to carry those with me even past this. And obviously the story of my birth taught me to like be grateful and work hard. But athletics, there's a really good book I'm reading right now by Mark Batterson. It's called Play the Man. And he talks about like, not to saying these qualities are exclusive to guys, but it's just talking about like, hey, to be successful, like live the life that God wants you to be, you have to live out these areas. And two parts of it are willpower and true grit. And I would not be where I am in my life today if athletics hasn't taught me that value. So kind of embracing those challenges and learning to grow through them has been huge. And even though like my purpose and my vision has like changed, or at least in my own perspective changed, like God's always had that plan for me. Just realizing like, hey, there's a reason why I went through this challenge of like, okay, I want to be an athlete, and like now I'm trying to change my entire like life goal. Like that struggle still had value and still had purpose, because it taught me how to have that willpower and work hard that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. So
that's a powerful story. I mean, that amazing, having that similarities from birth. And I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones that have, experienced those things. And whether they were at birth or they were earlier, adolescence,
Yeah.
whether they're in middle school, we all have things that we face in life. I am the type of guy, and you know me, like I want to motivate everyone.
Yeah.
But I also realize not everybody wants to be motivated. So today I'm at a store. I'm not going to mention the store, but I'm speaking to an employee, and it's not the best customer service ever. And so I'm there making a return. And so I'm having a conversation with the lady, and it just pops up in my head. I was like, "Hey, what's your dream?" And she's just like, she was like, and her friend like hops in, is like, she wants to be a nurse, older lady. Yeah. And so I was like, well, why are you not pursuing that? And then what happened was she started coming up with these list of excuses of why she's not where she wants to be at. And I realized this, not everybody gets it right away. Because I started talking, I said, listen, everything that you're saying is an excuse and a reason why you can't accomplish something. But just for every excuse, there's a reason why you can do something. Yeah. And I was just like, I know the accident that you've been through, you can either allow it to stop you or it can be the thing that pushes you forward. And she was just like, you can see things were resonating with her. So as I got done checking out with her, I told her, I said, this is what I want you to do tonight. And I said, you going to commit to me that you're going to do it? She's like, yeah. And keep in mind, this is at a store. I've never met this lady before. I said, I want you to write down your vision. I want you to write down your dream for your life. And she's... live podcast. I love it. My son is calling me, I tell you. And so she said, I want you to write down the dream and the vision that you have for your life. And so I'm just like, I tell her this and she's like, okay. And I was like, no, I need you to do it. She's like, no, I'm going to do it. And I was like, listen, you got to go after it. Because I said, it's not just about you. It's about all the lives that you're going to make an impact on. And it was like this profound moment. I don't know if that was a divine appointment of me being there at that store during this time of day that I was able to connect with us. But we can't look at our life as just going through the motions. We can't look at our life as just like, we're just here, because we're not just here for ourselves. For one, we're here to glorify God, but also two, to be a reflection of Him here in the earth, in everything that we do, not just being at church, not just around our Christian believer friends. No, it's to go out in the world and be that light. And I truly believe that that's one of the things that life and challenges tries to do, is it tries to dim our light. And the testament of you saying that no matter what, I'm going to push through. I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to be a person of grit. I'm going to be a person of integrity. I'm going to be a leader, whether that's in my sport or not. That's another thing that I want to touch on before. I always share with the athletes and just with individuals, integrity is not just being, one way in our sports. Like, I know people that are tenacious, like in their sports. Like, you get them on that court or you get them on that field and they go after it like nothing's going to stop them. But then they're slacking off in the classroom. And I'm not saying you have to be the best in every single area, but that same tenacity and that same grit that you have out there in your particular sport, if you were able to just to transfer that mentality over to the classroom, that you're not going to allow a teacher, that you're not going to allow a distraction, that you're not going to allow any past issues to stop you, I would be amazed at and I think they would be amazed at some of the things that they're able to accomplish in their life. And I just want to, give you your flowers. I think that's a terminology that we use nowadays. I'm going to give you your flowers today on your ability to persevere through circumstances and challenges, because I know it hasn't always been easy for you. I know as an athlete myself, it was hard to let that go, especially when everything that I've done. But sometimes when we come to the humbling feeling of like, okay, God, I'm going to trust the plan that you have for my life. I think that truly is the most rewarding thing, that you can realize it early. See, I got older in my life when I said, all right, all right, I think it's done. I can't go out there and tackle nobody anymore. But it's amazing that you can realize that now. And I truly believe that God's going to use you like far beyond what you can even think or imagine. I truly do believe that. And so nothing's ever wasted. And I think that's what you shared about having the ability to have that experience, being an athlete and making those connections from leadership to character, integrity, grit, resilience. All those things are going to come into play into one day, and even now to you being in ministry and being as a pastor, because it's more it's more being an athlete than it is anything else that you could think of. But one of the things that I want to visit before we kind of start to wrap up this podcast is part of where my mind has been going, and I've been seeing this vision of like this mountain. It's been this thing, and I'm never going to get away from it. Even now, I'm starting to look back at previous things that I was doing years ago, and like images and pictures that I had, it had this mountain in it. And like I said, I think that God's always like speaking to us, but
Yeah.
sometimes we really don't have our ear in tune to what he's saying, but he's always speaking. And so this mountain and this thing that it represents this something that we have to climb in life. You know, I tell individuals, we all have this mountain that we have to climb, and some people can take it for what it's worth. We're not climbing mountains. We're going to speak to the mountains. I understand that, but we all have something that we have to go through in life in order to reach a place that God has called us to reach, right? But I want to identify some areas and stages along this mountain that I think that maybe we can have a little bit more in-depth conversation about. So one is, I talk about base camp, right? Base camp is this idea of being comfortable. Base camp is this idea of, you know, sometimes we can become real familiar with something. Sometimes we can be the best at base camp, you know, and we don't feel that need to kind of push for more. But regardless of where we're at base camp, we all have to climb our mountain either now or later in life. Did you ever face that battle of being comfortable and wanting to push for more?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think it's kind of funny to think about it as an athlete, because I feel like the thing that required like more resilience to do was to realize that like it's coming to an end. Cause like, especially my entire life being taught like, no, I've been blessed with so many amazing like coaches and mentors, and even my dad and mom who'd be like, teach me how to work hard and how to persevere and how to actually give it everything you got, not just like say one thing and then live something out. So I do believe I'm a somewhat hardworking individual. And I think like a lot of that is to thank to those around me. But even through that, like realizing in sports, like, oh no, I have to keep pushing, try to like force my way. I think it was harder to realize, like, I think that was my base camp because I'd been so comfortable in athletics and like, yeah, I can do this. Like I can push myself harder to lift more weight or to swim a faster set or anything like that. But the true challenge was realizing like, hey, am I willing to like put this down so I can live my life for something that's actually going to give it purpose rather than just keep following my own selfish dreams to instead give that up and pursue something rather that's going to be honoring to God and actually creating a real impact. So I think along like those same lines, that idea of that challenge of like, okay, it's time to like move on. It's time to like continue past this base camp. Like you said, I think a lot of the time, so many people are so like hesitant about those challenges. They're so apprehensive and they're like, oh no, I'm good at where I'm at now. And like, I'm sure, like you said, a lot of athletes can relate because they're like, oh, what I'm doing now is good. Like I'm still working hard. I'm still having a good impact, but realizing that there's so much more for you. Like that challenge of like struggling with what your purpose is. There's a really good book I love. It's called Make Your Bed by an ex-Navy SEAL. His name's William McRaven. And he talks about like his experience going through like Navy SEAL training. And there's one entire section labeled like, don't be afraid of the circus. And basically what it's about is his like training regiment, like they do competitions, and every single time, like the certain amount of people who got last, they'd have to go to something called the circus, which was basically like taken out of their sleep time, like 3 extra hours of conditioning and training and in a program that's already brutal. So everyone was terrified of the circus because you're already like pushing yourself to your limits, both mentally and physically. So like no one wanted to be a part of it. But he notes how by the end of the program, when like over half the people who first joined were already gone, the people who are remaining by far, who are the most mentally and physically resilient, were the ones who went to the circus the most. So just this idea of embracing those challenges to, instead of running away. So like, don't stay in that base camp, but rather like go up that mountain, climb up it. Cause like, even if you fall down, you're blessed with the opportunity to get back up and climb up stronger than you once were before. So the idea of embracing challenges to grow to be the best you can be. So especially like in my own life, and I know like a lot of other athletes who are like in this pivotal time, like not saying like pursuing sports is bad in college. Like every person has a different calling and a different purpose. And I know so many people who have like had such an amazing impact through that, but just whatever it looks like in your life, realizing like the thing that you don't want to do, that challenge that makes you not want to leave that base camp. When you embrace it, that's often what can grow you to be the best you can be. So,
wow, man, are you available? I'm going to be going on a tour, speaking at all these different schools. I want to bring you along with me, man, because that was awesome, man. That was, man, just goodness, you just wrapped. We're gonna have to. I always say, I'm going to give you credit the first time around. I'm like, man, my friend Brayden once told me, but the next time I'm going to go, I'm going to say, man, you know what I always say? It's always a circus. No, I'm just messing with you. It won't take any credit for it. But, man, I love that story of that. See, I think on the contrary, my thing was that I was always naturally gifted as an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, like grew up, me and my brother were always the biggest kids. And like, it wasn't even a question of if I was going to play. It was just like, okay, like what position is he going to play?
Yeah.
But that also breeded a sense of base camp in me that I always had this feeling of like, okay, I'm the best, I'm the biggest. I don't have to really work for it. And I always tell individuals that sometimes is the toughest challenges you can face, to find a reason to push even when you feel like everything's kind of been handed to you. And I think that, one, if we can find that ability, regardless of where we're at in life, all of us are going to face it. Because one day you're not going to be the biggest and the baddest and the strongest. One day you're going to run into that mountain and you're going to be like, wow, I didn't learn the things that I had to learn previous to this that was going to help me to get up this mountain. And I think that the things that you've been through in life from birth up until even COVID to where you're at now as a senior, being a leader on your campus, being a person of influence, is going to help prepare you for what God is taking you in life. But a lot of us, or individuals, we like to take shortcuts. We don't like to do the work. We have a dream, we have a vision, but we don't realize it's going to take us doing something to get there. This is why I say we must climb our mountain, because I believe truly we all have an end goal of where we want to be at in life. I believe individuals are not sometimes happy where they're at, but they also don't want to put forth the work and the effort to get to where they want to be at in life. And I think that you saying these things and sharing that, like, we can't be afraid to attack this mountain. And so as we continue climbing up this mountain, there's just a few things. You already identified challenges. That's the next thing that I talk about. But support. What support did the play in your life that was help you to be able to get to the place where you're at right now?
Yeah. I mean, I would not be where I am today without the support of those around me. Like being a young kid with like a calling to be a pastor and like live a life in ministry, which isn't the most common thing in the world. I think a lot of the reasons why that is, and I feel like this is something that like a lot of churches like can do better at, is because like they let those callings and those passions like die out. Like that's another part, I believe, of like what being a man or like being a successful person is. It's having that passion. So just that passion has been able to survive and continue to grow past like, just some childhood like thoughts and dreams because of the support of those around me. So first, like my mom and my dad, like they've raised me in the church, and my dad has been a coach like my entire life. So just teaching me both like on and off the pool deck, like what it means to actually work hard and to be a man, to like have that grit and have that passion and like to put your like foot down and refuse to move and like have that grit to like push through and realize like, hey, this is my goal. This is what I want to accomplish. Like, this is how I'm going to do it. And then like on the other end of things, my mom has been like such an influential leader in my life, teaching me like, hey, this is the impact that leadership can have. Like, sure, you can do a lot of stuff just by focusing on yourself, but that's like linear growth compared to the exponential growth of being a servant leader by like loving and like serving the needs of others to grow them to be the best they can be, so that they can then be their own leaders. So both my mom and dad have been so influential and like inspiring me with the aspects of, okay, here's like why hard work is so important, and then here's why leading through serving is so important. And then also there's been so many mentors in my church, Chris Stewart, Justin Knowles, Tim Walker, just to rattle off a few, like so many who have like helped me grow to realize, like giving me the experiences and the opportunities and the wisdom, and be like, hey, you're growing up in like a day and age where values that once were like hard work and perseverance and all this stuff isn't as prevalent anymore. So here's how, like, especially in a church-based and a faith-based atmosphere, here's how you can still live out your purpose with a positive impact. So I definitely would not be where I am today with my vision, and like the experiences I have had to grow are so much like due to and thanks to so many amazing mentors and like those people who have loved into me and like grown me in my life. So,
you know, somebody asked me just recently, and I kind of fumbled over because I was, you know, sometimes we know the vision that we have and what's in our heart, but sometimes trying to communicate that in words is not always as easy, you know. And then, so even sometimes a man of, you know, many words, and you know, a wordsmith, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes even I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I had somebody ask me, well, what's the university, you know, about? And exactly what you just said resonated with my spirit, because I realize this. Not everybody has that support system. And going back to where I told you, where I was asking God and saying, God, what is it? Like, if it's not football, you give me this gift, this talent, like, what is it? And he said, look around you. And it's always, it's always been in you, like from a time you were a little boy. And like, I would organize, I was the one in my family where I would put on skits for like my mom and dad. Like we would do full on like skits and building things. I remember we were younger and we set up like this fort in our house and I had my dad's recorder and I'd pretend like I had my own radio station.
Yeah.
So, and then even coaching football and working in education and just having this influence that God has given me, I realize not everybody has that.
Yeah.
And I believe that God will raise up individuals like you and I, that those individuals that don't have or don't truly understand who they have in their life can now be able to get the support and the mentorship that they need, right? So when you look at university, right, Unlimited University, helping individuals to understand that it's unlimited what they can accomplish. And the university aspect is individuals like yourself, you're getting ready to go to college, you're getting ready to go to California Baptist University, right? It's a place where you're learning to become and learn and grow as an individual. And that's the dream of Unlimited University, to where individuals can come in from the time maybe they're in middle school to high school. And what happens is they're getting poured into, they're getting coached, they're taught about what it means to be a leader. A lot of things that we don't have the flexibility and sometimes the time to teach such content in the classroom, in the sense. I know that there are some schools doing that, but I feel like there's a lot of things in life that we're not learning in school. There's a lot of great things that are happening in school, but a lot of things that we're not able to touch on, or individuals don't feel comfortable touching on it. And I used to complain. I used to be like, man, we're not teaching this stuff in school. Why are we not teaching this? And I remember I had this awakening where it was like, God says, they're not supposed to be teaching it. You're supposed to be teaching it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And sometimes, as we talked before in the podcast, that pain that we have, that frustration that we have, is not a need of like somebody needs to do something. I believe it's God telling us, that's the pain point that I've called you into.
Yeah. Dang, that's
and
powerful.
So that's where I truly believe, where I see the pain, the things, the experience, like the support that you have in your life, and seeing that. And I believe that God's going to begin to open up your eyes, and you're going to be able to see like, man, I see this young man doesn't have that support at home. Or I see, this individual doesn't have that support. How can we get them the support they need? Because as you're climbing this mountain, you need support. Like, you need support. And a lot of us, we're trying to do it all by ourselves. And that's the difficult part, because when we slip and we fall and there's no one there that says, come on, get back up. I'm not going to pick you up, but I'll help you to get back up. Let's do this. We're going to climb this mountain together. Matter of fact, if you go this way, it's still much of a challenge, but you know what? You're going to be able to get up that mountain because you've been trying to go the difficult way.
Yeah.
I believe that's what coaches and mentors are able to do. And I think that that's what you just spoke to in your life. So again, I think I said I was going to wrap this up about 20 minutes ago, but I think the conversation that we're having is great, because as we're climbing our mountain, whatever the mountain may be for an individual, whatever it is, career, college, starting a business, closer relationship with God, whatever it may be, we all have to get to a place. But when you look back, let's say 20 years from now, what do you feel like? And not saying a mountaintop, because as I share, just to sum it up, I always say when we get to our mountaintop, that's not the end, because now we have another mountain that we have to climb, right? So it's not like, I have arrived, like that's not what it's about. But when you look back 5-10 years from now, like, what would you like to see God do in and through your life?
Yeah. Just first off, I want to say, like, that is like deeply powerful, like what you're saying about like the power that like a mentor can have in your life. And especially like this image of like climbing a mountain together, like brothers and sisters in Christ, like strengthening, like as iron sharpens iron. Yeah. So looking back, because again, I've been so blessed with like so many opportunities to have these amazing mentors like speak into my life. So, and however many years from now, like looking back, what I want to see is like that I've taken these opportunities and these blessings, and I haven't just like rested at base camp with them, but not only like I've used them to not only help me grow like and climb this mountain, but also to turn around and help others climb the mountain too. So I feel like that's so much what a purpose can be rooted in, more so than anything that an individual can do for themselves. It's when you decide to turn those efforts towards like others and help them to grow and like mentor them as well along their own mountains of life. So like you both grow together. So looking back, again, I'm so blessed for how many opportunities I've had for people to like pour into me, but I want to like I want to take that somewhere. I don't want to just rest at base camp. I want to help others grow through that too. So I want to use those blessings and those challenges that I've embraced to help me grow to hopefully be the best man I can be in however many years, to look back and realize like, hey, I took those opportunities. I took those like lessons and those blessings of growth, and I turned them towards others, and I helped lead others and like grow through that, and also help them to be the best they can be. So,
and I truly believe that's going to happen for you. I think that's, write that down, and if you haven't already, write that vision down, which we've had conversations with about before. And that's one of the things that I've been doing, just whatever God's telling me, I'm just writing it down. And sometimes I say, how and like when and, all these questions. But I truly believe that as we write those down, and just like even with this podcast, this was a vision that we had. And I remember all of a sudden things began lining up, from Rob, who's been able to edit, and Gabe, who's been able to get the film production side of different things like that. A lot of times what stops a lot of individuals is they look at the mountain, they go, how am I going to be able to do that? But all God does is he requires for us to take the first step. And as we take that first step and we lift up our hand, it's amazing. One day we'll look back and we'll go, wow, not look what I've accomplished, but look what God has done in my life. And that's where I see myself at 10, 20 years from now. I'm not saying what Unlimited University has become, because this is not about Felix Bobo. You know what I mean? It's looking back and saying, look at all the lives that you made an impact on. Look at all the students you've been able to send to college because of your scholarship. Look how many people now are starting their own successful businesses because you got on the podcast. And even though it was nerve-wracking, and even though people always have an opinion about stuff, and they're saying, you're not saying enough about this, and this is how you should, like, everyone always has an opinion about what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. But staying committed and staying faithful to what God has called me to do, I know one day I'm going to be able to look back and be like, God, this is not what I've done, but it's a testament of how you can use someone's life to make an impact. A person like me, a person that stood in front of a class one day, and I was reading my speech, and the teacher called me out because I kept saying the word axe. Like, when I grow up, if people ask me, and I remember I said that enough times that the teacher stopped me right in front of the whole entire class as I was preparing my speech in the auditorium. I remember it to this day. And she said, who are you going to axe, Felix? And I was like, and I was so confused because, like, I didn't know this. And she was like, the word is ask. And I realized that moment, God was shaping me for public speaking. God was shaping me to use my voice to make an impact in a generation. And that could have been the thing that kept me in my corner and like, I never want to speak again. Or allowed me to kind of even, am I perfect now? Absolutely not. Do I still like stutter and mumble over my words or talk too fast or talk too slow? But I think that if we have an approach and a posture of saying, God, I'm willing to be used by you no matter what arena that I'm in, whether I make it to the highest level of sports, whether I'm in the biggest church or even the smallest church, even if I'm in my community or my neighborhood, whatever it may be, God, I am willing to be used by you. And whatever that use may look like, I'm going to trust you in the process. And that's one of the things that I've had to learn, is saying, God, I don't know how you're going to do it. But when I look back at my life, I've seen what you've done and what you brought me out of, and I know you're going to continue using me. So as we wrap up, we got a few more minutes. I want you to just be able to speak to that heart. I go out and I speak to a lot of freshmen, right? And I really even feel like this push and this calling now to really more so to support these transitional years, like where you look at middle school to high school and then high school to college, right? I feel like those transitions a lot of times are where you get lost. This pivotal time in people's lives and I truly believe that middle school to high school and then high school to college is like I'm going to start narrowing down my focus a lot more and providing content and resources for individuals like that. But when you look back, part of I know your year was COVID and school shut down, but if you can speak to the heart of that freshman student, freshman now going to be a freshman next year, what are some things that you would say to that individual, not knowing who they are, but just, give them that word of encouragement, that word of like, whatever is laid upon your heart? What would you say to them?
So I have a short answer and a long answer. So the short answer is just be as involved as possible. Like those opportunities to grow and those like ability to embrace those challenges to push you forward, that's only going to happen if you put in the time and the effort and you find and you make those opportunities possible for you to go ahead and experience that. So any freshman coming in like worrying about like, oh, I don't know, like what I'm going to be a part of, or I don't know who friends I'm going to be with, or anything like that. Just any like very practical, like any clubs or sports or like ASB. I've been in ASB all 4 years. And like, I always tell this to freshmen who are interested in joining it. Like, even if ASB isn't for them, like the opportunity just to go out there and experience things and 100%. Let God provide the opportunity to grow. So that's my short answer, to be as involved as possible. But like furthering on that idea, just this like concept of pushing yourself to have those opportunities to, like, I'm trying to find the words, like those challenges basically, like that we mentioned earlier. Like, I'll explain a story, and that hopefully that will like visualize it better. I remember a few years ago, I mentioned my dad was a coach. He's coach over at CBU, Division I water polo program. I was asked to go do a devotional for them. So I remember, like, I went and I was speaking to all these athletes, and I just remember pausing like for a second in the middle of like one of the things I was talking about. I was talking about hard work in that devotional. And I remember just looking around and like, man, what I wouldn't give to be in any one of your guys' positions one day. And just thinking about like, and that was the time where I was struggling with like that calling changing or not. So just realizing how like, yeah, my hard work hasn't opened that path for me, but I've still been able to like pursue other like victories and successes through that. And even connecting back to the story of my birth, like one of the things I had to deal with for a long time was a speech impediment because of like those blood levels. Like after the surgery, like I had a stutter for a very long time. I had to go to years of speech therapy for that. And similar to you, I'm now pursuing a vision and a purpose, which is rooted in my ability to talk. So just imagining how like be involved as possible, because God will create those opportunities for you, even if you don't know what it's going to look like. And even if it's scary, to be as involved as possible and do as many clubs. And like, even when you're encountering the challenges in those clubs, like going from, okay, I'm playing 2 sports and I have all honors classes, I have to stay up till like 3 a.m. for a test. Like, how is this possible? Just going in with a mindset of realizing, hey, God's in control. And by at least pursuing these opportunities and taking the first step, like you said, he's going to push me and he's going to take care of that. So even if it's not exactly what my own vision is, I'm still going to be pursuing my actual vision and growing to be the best I can be. So
Wow, that's so good. Well, you know what, Mr. Brayden, I want to thank you so much. It's truly an honor to have you on the Everyday Purpose podcast. One of the things I do want to ask you, and one of the things as I shared with you just a moment ago, is to be able to help out with those transitional years. And I would love to even like continue this conversation further as you get ready to start college, as we bring you back on the podcast, and maybe you can talk to us about dorm life. Like, how is it? You know, I remember just get ready for college. I remember I was with my roommate and I had bought 7-Up. I remember like it was just, I bought this 7-Up and it was just 2 of us, just roommates. And so I got back home and my 7-Up, it was about like this much. It was not much 7-Up. So I was like, hey man, you know, you could have just asked. He was like, I didn't drink it. And I like looked at him. I said, well, who did? Like, he was just like, I don't know. It wasn't me. And I just said, well, I didn't drink it. And if I didn't drink it, who did you have over that drank the 7-Up? And he was like, no one's been over here. And I said, oh, dude. Like, and it was like that he, and then later on he came to me, he was like, man, I'm sorry about drinking your 7-Up. But he like both. So hopefully you have better roommates than what I did. But we would love to have you back on and kind of like share like what your college experience is like. Because I think that that's something that can also help out the incoming college students that may be a little scared. And, you know, it can be a little difficult with that transition from high school to college, especially if you're staying on campus, being away from mom and dad for the first time in your life and kind of living on your own. So if you're open to that, we would love to have you come on maybe a couple times in the upcoming year when you're in college and just be able to kind of shed some light on your experience.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to. Cool. And especially I'm sure that will continue to show like the same trend of like, even through those challenges, like just being willing to like go through them and just trust God and whatever they are and not being afraid to back away from those experiences, but rather going into it with like full willpower and full grit to try to be the best you can be. So.
There we go. Awesome. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you, sir. Until next time, you guys, keep walking in your purpose, keep living in your purpose. Come on, it's your time. Come on, it's your time. It's your moment. Our time, our moment. You guys have a great day.